You reach a point in life when even the smallest request feels heavier than it should. Not because you've stopped caring, but because your hands have been full for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to rest them on your own knees. There's a particular kind of tiredness that doesn't announce itself. It simply settles in, quietly, like dusk sliding across a familiar room, until one day you notice you're moving through your life with a softness that isn't peace, but depletion. You know this feeling. A late-night phone call, the kind that always comes when you've just sat down, just exhaled, just begun to sense your own evening. You answer because you always do. The voice on the other end spills its anxieties, its crises, its endless needs, and you listen, because listening has become your role. But when the call ends, the silence in your home feels different. It isn't stillness, it's an ache. In the morning, the kitchen is dim. You stand at the counter with a cup growing cold between your palms, staring at nothing, thinking about everything. Someone needs something again. They always do. And you rise to meet it, almost automatically, the way a door opens when someone leans against it. Not because the door wants to move, but because it was never built to resist. This is how it's been for years. Your kindness became a kind of gravity, and everyone learned to orbit you. You didn't notice the pull at first. You didn't notice how often you said, "I'm fine," when you weren't, or how often you set your needs aside like a coat left on a chair you never returned to. But your body noticed. Your spirit noticed. There are mornings now when you feel the weight before you even open your eyes. And still, somehow, you keep showing up. There's a door inside you, one you've held open for so long it's hard to remember when it last closed. People walk in and out with their worries, their questions, their longing for reassurance. You let them. You tell yourself it's love. You tell yourself it's duty. But there's another truth, a quieter one, that stirs beneath all that giving. You are exhausted. Not from effort, but from carrying what was never yours. And when you finally admit that, even just to yourself, something shifts. A faint awareness, like the first cool breath after a long, airless night. You realize you have been holding the door open far too long. There's a pattern we rarely name out loud, though it follows you like a shadow. You give because you're kind, yes, but that's only the surface. Beneath it, there's something quieter, more complicated, almost tender in its fear. You give because somewhere along the way, you learned that being needed was the safest place to stand. You learned that love arrives more reliably when you're useful, when you're steady, when you hold everything together, even as you're coming apart. We don't choose this consciously. It's stitched into us by years of small moments, those barely noticeable exchanges that teach us who we're supposed to be. Maybe it was a parent who only softened when you helped. Maybe it was a friend who disappeared the moment you stopped listening. Maybe it was a lifetime of praise for being the strong one, that quiet medal pinned to your chest until the weight of it bent your posture. You and I both know what it feels like. There's a memory that rises now. An ordinary afternoon. Your phone buzzes, a familiar name lighting the screen. You don't have the energy, not today, but you answer anyway. The person talks for 20 minutes straight, not once noticing your silence, not once asking how you are. And when the call finally ends, you set the phone down and whisper, "It's fine," even though it isn't. Even though something inside you has curled inward, like a leaf trying to survive a sudden frost. Or maybe you remember this instead. You're washing dishes, water running warm over your hands, and you hear someone in the next room sigh, a small, frustrated exhale. Before they even call your name, you turn off the tap, dry your hands, and walk toward the sound with that instinctive readiness to fix what hasn't yet been asked of you. You do it without thinking. It feels automatic, like muscle memory carved from years of believing that your value lies in making life easier for someone else. And you wonder why you're tired. You see, we confuse goodness with disappearance. We think that giving without limit proves something, proves we're worthy, proves we belong, proves we won't be left behind. We've been taught subtly that the one who needs nothing is easiest to love. But here's the truth we hesitate to admit. Your overgiving was never generosity. It was fear wearing kindness as a mask. There comes a moment, not loud, not dramatic, when something finally becomes clear. You feel it before you understand it. A small tightening in the chest when another request arrives. A faint tremor in the silence after you say, "Of course," though your whole body whispered, "Please, not this time." It's the moment when kindness stops feeling warm and starts feeling thin. As if each gesture, each favor, each steadying hand has taken a quiet slice of you, and the pile of small absences has begun to show. You don't blame the people who lean on you. Most of them don't know any better. They only know the version of you who never falters, never hesitates, never says, "I can't." They've grown accustomed to the open door, the always lit porch, the unspoken promise that you will be there, no matter the hour, no matter the cost. And you have kept that promise, even when it hollowed something inside you. But here, in this dim room of recognition, a truth forms itself with quiet precision. You haven't just been giving, you've been dissolving. Kindness without boundaries becomes a kind of slow disappearance, a gentle vanishing, a person erasing their own outline so others can feel more certain, more comfortable, more held. It takes years to notice. Years of smiling through fatigue. Years of answering messages long after you needed sleep. Years of being the steady ground for people who never wondered what it cost you. And then one day, it arrives. The realization with the softness of dawn. A kind of light that doesn't ask permission. It simply shows the room as it is. You see your own hands, worn from carrying what they were never meant to hold. You see the door you've kept open, trembling on its hinges. You see the air around you, too thin to breathe because you've given all your breath away. And the sadness is immediate, because you meant well. You always meant well. But the relief is there too, rising gently beneath the ache. Because meaning well does not require losing yourself. Because love is not measured by how much of yourself you're willing to sacrifice. Here is the quiet paradox you've been circling for years. A flame cannot keep others warm if it burns itself to ash. Let your light endure, not disappear. There is a kind of strength that never announces itself. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't defend or explain. It moves the way evening settles, slow, inevitable, and entirely without permission. You begin to feel that strength the first time you let a call ring without picking up, not out of anger, not out of punishment, but because something in you recognizes you've already given enough for one day, and the world will not collapse if you choose a moment of quiet. The phone buzzes again. You watch the name pulse on the screen. For years you would have answered before the first ring faded, shaping your tone to whatever the other person needed. Now, you simply place the phone face down on the table. The room absorbs the silence. Your pulse steadies in its own time. This isn't rebellion, it's return. You start to understand that boundaries are not walls. They're thresholds, places where you decide what crosses into your peace and what remains outside. A closed door does not mean exile. It means you've chosen to rest on your side of it. You sit in the soft light of your living room, the curtains breathing lightly with the wind, and you realize how rarely you've allowed yourself to belong fully to your own space. There is a shift inside you, subtle but unmistakable. You no longer rush to fill the silence between yourself and others. You let it stand. You let it do the work you once did, holding, cooling, clarifying. Silence becomes its own kind of boundary, a gentle refusal wrapped in calm air. Someone will eventually ask if you're upset. Someone always does, but you feel no pull to explain. Explanations were the currency of your old life, the one where you softened every edge, justified every no, and rushed to reassure the very people who drained you. Now, refusal is simple, not sharp, not barbed, just quiet. You walk away from certain conversations, certain obligations, certain patterns, not with fanfare, but with the same ease you'd use to close a window against a draft. Not to shut the world out, but to keep your warmth in. The dignity in this is understated. It doesn't seek applause. It doesn't need to be understood. It is enough that you feel your own presence returning, step by step, breath by breath. No one hears the decision when it happens. It arrives like a soft click, the inner latch of a long open door finally settling into place. And in its wake, the house quiets. There is a tenderness in stepping back that few people ever talk about, a gentleness that has nothing to do with leaving and everything to do with honoring the quiet shape of your own life. When you no longer rush toward every voice calling your name, something soft begins to unfold, a new kind of listening, a new kind of love. Imagine your inner world as a small, well-kept house. Nothing grand, just a warm room, a clean table, a lamp glowing in the corner. For years, the door of this house stayed open, wide, unguarded, unlatched, so others could enter whenever they wished. Some came respectfully, some stayed too long, some tracked their storms across your floor without noticing. And still, you kept the door open. But now, you find yourself standing in that doorway with a different awareness. The light inside is delicate. It is meant to be protected, not hidden, protected. You close the door halfway, then all the way, not with force but with care. It clicks softly into place, and the sound surprises you. It feels like devotion. Distance becomes a kind of reverence. You begin to understand that stepping back is not an act of coldness. It's a way of preserving the simple goodness that once kept you close to others. When you stay quiet, when you stay home, when you stay within the boundaries that finally make sense, you are not abandoning anyone. You are keeping your light alive, so it does not fade into the demands around you. You sit at your table. The lamp warms the room with its small circle of gold. You breathe. You feel the weight in your shoulders disappearing, inch by inch. Nothing pulls at you here. Nothing drains you. The house feels whole because you are not spilling yourself into every open hand. And from this stillness, something unexpected happens. You begin to love people in a cleaner way. Not from obligation, not from fear, but from a steady, grounded presence that asks for nothing and gives only what you can offer without breaking. Silence becomes your offering. Your way of saying, I care enough to stay whole. You no longer throw yourself into every storm. You stand on the riverbank, lantern in hand, letting others find their own path through the water. If they need guidance, your light will be visible. If they do not, you remain steady, untouched by the current. And in this simple, unforced distance, your heart grows lighter, not lonelier, more open, not more guarded. The harmony you protect inside yourself begins to flow outward, gentle as the glow of that small lamp in your quiet room. Love grows stronger when it is allowed to breathe. There comes a moment when the weight you've been carrying no longer feels like a burden you must understand, or forgive, or justify. It simply feels heavy, and you, for the first time in a long time, feel ready to set it down. Not with drama, not with speeches, just with an exhale. All the work you've done to hold the world together, the answering, the rushing, the smoothing, the comforting, it loosens its grip on you. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. Somewhere along this quiet path, you stopped believing that your worth was measured by your depletion. You look back at the fatigue that once defined you, the late night calls, the endless giving, the door you couldn't close, and you see it now with a kind of tenderness. You weren't wrong. You weren't weak. You were simply trying to love in the only way you knew how. But now, something steadier lives in you. It isn't resistance. It isn't withdrawal. It's a soft inner steadiness, as if your spirit finally sits down after standing too long. You find yourself moving differently. You speak less, and yet say more. You listen to yourself before you listen to the world. You let silence do the work that explanations used to do. And in that silence, guilt begins to dissolve like mist in warm air. There's nothing to defend anymore. No need to be understood. No need to convince anyone that your peace is reasonable. It is enough that it is yours. You begin to walk with a lighter step, the way someone does after cleaning a room that stayed cluttered for years. Not triumphant, just clear. Not triumphant, just free. And you notice the strangest thing. The world doesn't collapse when you stop carrying it. People keep living. Problems find new ways to resolve themselves. Life moves with or without your exhaustion. It always did. So you return to yourself, quietly, gently, as if coming home after a long absence. You sit in the calm you once feared would be misunderstood, and for the first time, peace feels natural. It fits you. It stays. You are no longer holding everything. You are simply here, and that is enough. Letting go is not loss. It is the beginning of lightness.